Chapter 89 Fast Fish and Loose Fish. The allusion to the waif and waif poles in the last chapter but one necessitates some account of the laws and regulations of the whale fishery, of which the waif may be deemed the grand symbol and badge. It frequently happens that when several ships are cruising in company, a whale may be struck by one vessel, then escape, and be finally killed and captured by another vessel. And herein are indirectly comprised many minor contingencies, all partaking of this one grand feature. For example, after a weary and perilous chase and capture of a whale, the body may get loose from the ship by reason of a violent storm, and drifting far away to the leeward, be retaken by a second whaler, who, in a calm, snugly tows it alongside without risk of life or line. This, the most vexatious and violent disputes would often arise between fishermen, were not there some written or unwritten universal undisputed law applicable to all cases. Perhaps the only formal whaling code authorized by legislative enactment was that of Holland. It was decreed by the States General in A.D. 1695. But though no other nation has ever had any written whaling law, yet the American fishermen have been their own legislators and lawyers in this matter. They have provided a system for which terse comprehensiveness surpasses Justinian's Pandix, and by laws of the Chinese Society for the Suppression of Meddling with Other People's Business. Yes, these laws might be engraven on a Queen Anne's farthing or the barb of harpoon and worn round the neck, so small are they. 1. Fast fish belongs to the party fast to it. 2. A loose fish is fair game for anyone who can soonest catch it. But what plays the mischief with this masterly code is the admirable brevity of it, which necessitates a vast volume of commentaries to expound it. First, what is a fast fish? Alive or dead, a fish is technically fast when it is connected with an occupied ship or boat by any medium at all controllable by the occupant or occupants. A mast, an oar, a 9-inch cable, a telegraph wire, or a strand of cobweb, it's all the same. Likewise, a fish is technically fast when it bears a waif or any other recognized symbol of possession, so long as a party waifing it plainly evince their ability at any time to take it alongside, as well as their intention to do so. These are scientific commentaries, but the commentaries of whalemen themselves sometimes consist in hard words and harder knocks. The Coke upon Littleton of the fist. True, among the more upright and honorable whalemen, allowances are always made for peculiar cases, where it would be an outrageous moral injustice for one party to claim possession of a whale previously chased or killed by another party. But others are by no means so scrupulous. Some 50 years ago, there was a curious case of a whale trover litigated in England, wherein the plaintiff set forth that after a hard chase of a whale in the northern seas, and when indeed they, the plaintiffs, had succeeded in harpooning the fish, they were at last, through peril of their lives, obliged to forsake not only their lines but their boat itself. Ultimately, the defendants, the crew of another ship, came up with the whale, struck, killed, seized, and finally appropriated it before the very eyes of the plaintiffs. And when those defendants were remonstrated with, their captain snapped his fingers in the plaintiff's teeth, and assured them that by way of doxology to the deed he had done, he would now retain their line, harpoons, and boat, which had remained attached to the whale for the time of the seizure. Wherefore the plaintiffs now sued for the recovery of the value of their whale, line, harpoons, and boat. Mr. Erskine was counsel for the defendants. Lord Ellenborough was the judge. In the course of the defense, the witty Erskine went on to illustrate his position by alluding to a recent criminal considerating case, wherein a gentleman, after a vain trying to bridle his wife's viciousness, had at last abandoned her upon the seas of life. But in the course of years, repenting of that step, he instituted an action to recover possession of her. Erskine was on the other side, and he then supported it by saying that, although the gentleman had originally harpooned the lady, had at once held her fast, and by reason of the great stress of her plunging viciousness, had at last abandoned her. Yet abandon her he did, so that she became a loose fish, and therefore, when a subsequent gentleman re-harpooned her, the lady became a subsequent gentleman's property, along with whatever harpoon he might have been found sticking in her. Now, in the present case, Erskine contended that the examples of the whale and the lady were reciprocally illustrative of each other. These pleadings and the counter pleadings being heard, the very learned judge in set terms decided, to wit, that as for the boat, he awarded it to the plaintiffs because they had merely abandoned it to save their lives, but that with regard to the controverted whale, harpoons, and line, they belonged to the defendants. The whale because it was a loose fish at the time of the final capture, and the harpoons and line because when the fish made off with them, the fish, acquired a property in those articles, and hence anyone who afterwards took the fish had a right to them. Now the defendants afterwards took the fish, ergo the aforesaid articles were theirs. A common man looking at the decision of this very learned judge might possibly object to it, but plowed up to the primary rock of the matter, the two great principles laid down in the twin whaling laws previously quoted, and applied elucidated by the Lord Ellenborough in the above cited case. These two laws touching fast fish and loose fish, I say, will, on reflection, be found in the fundamentals of all human jurisprudence. For notwithstanding its complicated tracery of sculpture, the temple of law, like the temple of the Philistines, has but two props to stand on. It is not saying in everyone's mouth possession is half the law, that is, regardless of how the thing came into possession, but often possession is the whole of the law. What are the sinews and souls of Russian serfs and Republican slaves but fast fish, whereof possession is the whole of the law? What to the rapacious landlord is the widow's last mite but a fast fish? What is yonder undetected villain's marble mansion with a door plate for a waif? What is that but a fast fish? What is the ruinous discount which Mordecai, the broker, gets from poor Woebegone, the bankrupt, on a loan to keep Woebegone's family from starvation? What is that ruinous discount but a fast fish? What is the Archbishop of Save Souls' income of £100,000 seized from the scant bread and cheese of hundreds of thousands of broken-backed laborers, all sure of heaven without any of Save Souls' help? What's that globular £100,000 but a fast fish? What are the Duke of Dunder's hereditary towns and hamlets but fast fish? What to that redoubted harpooner John Bull is poor Ireland but a fast fish? What to that apostolic lancer Brother Jonathan is Texas but a fast fish? And concerning all these is not possession the whole of the law. But if the doctrine of fast fish be pretty generally applicable, the kindred doctrine of loose fish is still more widely so. It is internationally and universally applicable. What was America in 1492 but a loose fish in which Columbus struck the Spanish standard by way of waifing it for his royal master and mistress? What was Poland to the Tsar? What was Greece to the Turk? What was India to England? What at last will Mexico be to the United States? All loose fish. What are the rights of man and the liberties of the world but loose fish? What all men's minds and opinions but loose fish? What is the principle of religious belief in them but a loose fish? What to the ostentatious smuggling verbalists are the thoughts of thinkers but loose fish? What is the great globe itself but a loose fish? And what are you, reader, but a loose fish and a fast fish too? This is the end of chapter 89. Now, I remembered this chapter and I kind of look forward to it. There's a saying called playing fast and loose. So fast is one of those words that has two meanings, or it has several meanings. But it has two meanings which are kind of the opposite of each other. So one meaning of fast is that it is held still and kept from moving. And the other meaning of fast is quick, in that it can go quickly and zip from place to place. A third meaning, which is unrelated to the other two, is to fast, which is to not eat. But fast, being an adjective, can describe being able to move quickly, or it can mean to be stuck. Now, loose is loose, and so loose is just open and out and unattached and available. So there used to be this game. It was a con game back in the day of this, the 1800s, early 1900s, maybe even earlier, which was called fast and loose, where you had someone who set up a table with a little peg on the table, and they took a belt or a rope, or it doesn't really matter what, is a piece of string, and they wrapped it back and forth around the peg, and it was put in certain ways, and they held the two ends of the rope, and they asked, is the peg fast or loose? Meaning, if they pull on the rope, will the peg be held by the rope? Or, if they pull on the rope, will the rope just go around the peg and not actually hold on to it? And so this was an old con game. And the trick of it was that there was a way that you could tie down the rope where it depended on how you pulled. So if you pulled one side, the knot came untangled and the post was loose. If you pulled the other way, the knot tangled up and the post became held fast. So it was a game called Fast and Loose, and you know, it was like the 3-card Monty type of thing where, you know, people would come up and you'd see the person saying, and you say, okay, is this fast or loose? And you'd put your money down, and the person would pull the ropes, and oops, it's fast, you lost. Tie it up again, put your money down, fast or loose? Loose. Ah, it was fast, you lost. So this was one of those con games that was just kind of unwinnable. And but that was called playing fast and loose. And in modern parlance, the phrase fast and loose is doing things in a sort of sketchy manner, where it's like, okay, we'll cut some corners, we'll do it on the cheap, we'll skip some steps and we'll get it done, but it won't be done in the best and most proper way. So that's playing fast and loose. And it kind of is the same way the chapter is, where it talks about, oh, all of these things are fast fish. All of these things are held down. So it's like, this is mine. And it kind of gives the impression that the whole fast fish and loose fish was more about, oh, who can hold on to it, as opposed to who can grab it and hold on to it, as opposed to who does it actually belong to. Because a lot of those examples were America in 1492 was a loose fish. I imagine the Aztecs, the Incas, the Iroquois, all of those Native American tribes would rather disagree with America being a loose fish at that point in time. And likewise, the Irish will take exception to Ireland being a fast fish to John Bull, which is the English version of Uncle Sam. So John Bull is often used as a name for England. So England is John Bull, just like America is Uncle Sam. So it's like the personification of England. So it's saying, oh, Ireland is a fast fish to England. It's like, no. Just like America was a loose fish before Columbus came. No. But anyway, this was playing fast and loose. And so this is one of those chapters where he gives a kind of wink at the audience. And so all of these examples are pretty much bad examples. And I mean, he gives the case of the whale, where the whale was pegged. The whale was caught by one boat. And because the whale was thrashing or something happened, people had to jump out of the boat. Another boat harpooned the whale. And because the other boat harpooned the whale, they claimed the whale, the other ship's harpoon, the ropes, the other ship's boat. Because it was all kind of tied together. It's like, well, we caught the whale. And you didn't have anybody left on your boat. So that's one of those things. It's like, a lot of people would just call that one piracy. But maritime law, it might not actually be piracy because the ship had been abandoned. So it would actually be considered salvage, maybe. But had one person been holding on to the boat, then they would have had the boat, the harpoon, the ropes, and the fish. but they didn't, so whoops.